Hi, welcome to Mixer. We're glad you've decided to grow your community with us. Before we
Alright, everyone. Let's get this show on the road. Hey, how's it going? Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the stream. Sorry for getting started a little bit late. It's been a bit crazy today, but I'm here. I'm present. I'm here for you. And if this is your first time, my name is David West. I got some new headphones in. I left my headphones at work. That's the whole thing. But anyway, you are here for the live stream. The live stream tonight, we are doing the Sprint 1 review, retrospective, and Sprint 2 planning session over the course of the night. So we got a bunch of stuff we got to go over. If you're new to the stream, this is where I do a live stream to have a conversation with stakeholders in part of my game #Vagabond Game. I am trying to make a game, make it happen, and I'm doing it in an agile way because I'm not a full-time game developer. I have a day job. I have all kinds of real-life responsibilities outside of just game development. Not to say that game dev isn't real life, but you know, it's pretty crazy. So, trying to do this in a work-life balance kind of way, and it's got its challenges, and I still want to make a game. So, to do that, I'm doing it agile, and that's why we're doing a sprint review, because I've spent 3 weeks building stuff and working on stuff, and we're going to go over that and then see what lessons I've learned. So let's get into the slides, shall we? Get out of studio mode. Slides, here we go. So, boop. There we go. #Vagabond Game. So at this point, we're in review and retrospective. And if you are new, just to kind of recap what we're doing in this section, we're doing the sprint review. So that is where the product owner discusses the progress that was made during the sprint. And basically for me, I kind of review what was done, what wasn't completed, and what wasn't even started. Talk about the sprint highlights and the project health overall. So I am the product owner. The developers, which is also me, but the development team demonstrates that progress. So we're going to be doing a little bit of that today. After we're done the sprint review, which is the majority of what we're going to talk about, we're doing the sprint retrospective. And the sprint retrospective is just kind of talk about what I learned on there and have a conversation about it on chat. But we also take a point of actually not just talking about the good and the less good events from the sprint that occurred, but also the lessons learned and the planned improvements, call to action. What can I do to make this better? And that's the idea. We're being agile, but we got to learn from our mistakes. And so that's what we're doing. So let's get to the sprint review. So this was our Sprint 1 plan. So what we had done is one of the things we learned from the previous sprint was that we needed to kind of add some development to this. So we added the design side of things, we added the development side of things. And the overall goal of these two different sets of tasks we created was to build a minimal foundation for the game. Just something we can start building prototypes on and start really getting into the thick of what I like to call #Vagabond games, or getting it out there to play for people. On the development side, we planned on doing an automated scaffolding for continuous integration of the game. If you're not a technical person, that's okay. What that means is, you know, when you build a game, when you're developing a game, you need to run a sort of a script or a something to build the actual thing that gets run, the executable. I want to automate that process so that when I make a change, it gets built and turns into the thing. Because building a game or essentially compiling a game is a little bit more involved than I'm used to. So I wanted to kind of automate as much of that as I could. In terms of the actual game itself, I wanted to just display a title screen and be able to exit the game. Nothing too crazy, but at the end of the day, just kind of set up that scaffolding on the development side. that is my strong suit. Development is my strong suit. Now the design side of the house, that's different. I had 2 tasks. I wanted to finish the storyboards for dialogue and conversation, which is kind of the fundamental piece of gameplay in this game, and wanted to create a lower production purpose or quest line, because from the previous sprint we had learned that I did the musician quest line, and it was just, there was a high production value, so I started considering that when I'm doing the design. So those were our 2 pieces. Again, build that minimal foundation and then get going. So how'd I do? Well, let's look at done. Got a lot done, actually. We did the lower production purpose, the automated scaffolding got done, all the development tasks got done, to play a title screen, to play the exit the game. Those were very simple tests. The automated scaffolding was not, but I had a really good couple of nights and just hammered through a lot of it and got it working as good as I needed to, as well as I needed to. The lower production purpose took a lot longer than I thought it would, but we did. But then again, something that wasn't completed again were the storyboards for the dialogue. That's the second sprint it's been carrying on, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I'll talk about that when we get to it. But in terms of not started, I took a stab at everything. So here's what we got done. So I'm going to celebrate this a little bit. We have the lower production purpose, the lower production quest line. So far I'm calling it the marketeer quest line, sort of a business trading kind of a free market kind of idea, or an economics quest line. It's all gameplay. That's why I like the design. It's not adding a ton of new elements, but gameplay elements that I can deal with. Simplified game elements. I started getting some design references, which is really good. On top of that, we also, so we got all that done. I did a couple of other ones, Criminal and Hero, but I really focused it on the Marketeer because I really wanted that one to be I really had a good feeling about that one. I'd thought about that one a few times over, and I'm a sucker for economic games with an economic system in them, so that's a really good thing for me. On the development side, I actually hammered through everything really good in a few nights. I did manage to get the automated scaffolding done for continuous integration. I did manage to get a basic display screen up and started tinkering with code again, and I managed to get an exit the game setup going. So it all works. We'll see a demonstration later. You can ignore the demo slide because we're not going to do the demos right away. So yeah, in terms of what was complete, the only thing I didn't get that wasn't complete was the storyboards for the dialogue and conversation, and I don't have a point for that. But the challenge with this ended up being, again, the amount of time I spent on that lower production quest line was pretty high. It took a good week and a half to really get that feeling like it was complete. I was having a hard time. I talked about that in my weekly scrums that happened on Mondays. And yeah, that's kind of where that caught up. And then I got into the storyline. I was starting to, at that point, to be fair, I was starting to get to a point where I was itching for more code. I was starting to get kind of itchy scratchy on this. So I ended up kind of moving over to the coding side, doing some of those tasks, got those done. It was a nice little break, went back to the storyboarding, and then started to realize I really needed to kind of really flesh out that flow chart that I had created in the previous sprint. And I did. I cleaned it up and really analyzed it a little bit more and started to realize what did I need to build a minimum viable product. But again, all of these ended up being sort of distractions from the core thing, storyboards for the dialogue. So I got them started. So I got some other stuff done as well, but it wasn't the actual task. It was something good to point out. In terms of what I didn't start, nothing. I started everything, which is awesome. So I wanted to highlight that. That's a really good thing for me. Other sprint highlights. I'm starting to get more in-person questions from my local community. People noticing about my continual posts about Vagabond Game. Maybe it's because I'm annoying. Maybe it's because it's all I talk about when I have a chance with people. But I am not bringing it up to them. They are bringing it up to me, which is pretty cool. Which is saying that some of my continual yelling out into the void is actually getting somewhere. So it's not necessarily a void. There is some people, and I'm happy with in-person community questions coming from people. So that's awesome. So that's good. In terms of project health, I'm putting it at a status of good. So it's green, everything good. I need to get these storyboards done. I'm again, see, a bit of procrastination, a bit of cleanup, a bit of not understanding what I got to do. But the design is hard for me to estimate right now to kind of feel good about it. But I still need to get through that to work through the details of the gameplay. What I had found in the previous one is those storyboards are again, they're providing clarity on the design and ultimately the requirements that I have to build. That being said, there's all these little details that I'm getting caught up in. I didn't spend time on the quote-unquote the business side of things or the administration side of things. more specifically, like answering questions like, where do people download things? I had that set up before. Am I going to just reuse that? Well, I started this whole thing about not using that, and how's that going to work? So how do we get people to engage with me, and with the more specifically, how do they get the game, and how do they engage with the community if they have feedback? Like, these are the business side or the administrative tasks that I have not considered. So although I had promised that I was going to have something out the door, I didn't have a way for people to get it. I didn't account for my time to get it out there and polish that up a little bit. Even if it wasn't perfect, just have a way to get it. Didn't have that. And lastly, I'm starting to feel like I need to start prototyping, because I'm starting to feel that I'm starting to work through the feeling that I think is there. And that's the thing. We'll talk about what that means in terms of the lessons learned, but I really need to start prototyping. I need to start getting something out there, releasing a hollow shell to the community this week. I'm not that upset that it didn't get done. It would have been nice to test a couple things up, but the fact that it didn't get done isn't going to break me. Reason being, it's not that important. It was just going to be literally a hollow shell of stuff, so it's not a big deal. So the next steps for the next sprint, and we'll talk about this in the planning, I need to start doing some prototyping, and I need to prioritize and do some administrative or some business related tasks. And that is just, we'll talk about that, but really kind of focus in on that. And I've really thought about this. We'll talk about this in the retrospective section, which is starting now. Let's actually quickly, that's okay. I don't need to do that. So this is the sprint retrospective. So in this is where we kind of talk about the good and the less good things, and what the lessons learned are. So the good that came out of this was I really did manage to focus on the design. I did get distracted, and it felt like I was pulling teeth a couple of times, but I did focus on it. I didn't spend a ton of time in code. It's a good way to try to show that I'm evolving as a game designer and game developer, that I'm able to kind of really distinguish where I need to focus my time, and I am feeling productive when I'm doing design. Although it's harder, I am feeling quite productive with it. In terms of sprint commitment, it was much better. So I pointed out that there was nothing that I didn't start. That's huge. The previous one, I missed a bunch of stuff, and I got a lot of stuff that didn't get finished. It's half-baked. So the sprint commitment was way better, because only one was not finished. So I got to really kind of try to balance this out a little bit more. So that was really good. In terms of the less good, I made the documentation more complicated than it needed to be. The last sprint, I spent a long time talking about what wiki I have to use, and kind of like the logistics of where this is going to be. I'm building the stage that I don't have anyone, but I have no audience. So I started to realize that the documentation that I'm building with OneNote and all these tools I put in place, again, is overcomplicating things. The thing I'm really good at, and if you see me public speak, you'll know that I live and breathe PowerPoint. Like, I'm a big PowerPoint fan. It's a documentation tool. As a presentation with a visual aid is great. So I went back to my PowerPoint storyboards and started rehashing them, and that's when things started to feel really good. Cleaned up the flowchart documentation, so that was a redo, but it was a really good spot for it to be redone because it makes sense to have it in the document. And then moving forward, and then I started on the storyboards again, which is again good. I have something that feels pretty nice, and we'll see that in a little bit. In terms of the design is starting to feeling over-engineered or over-designed. I am constantly rehashing it. It's all these theories and hypotheses about what's going to be fun, what's not going to be fun. And that's where the whole thing about I need a prototype is coming. So I need to sort that out. And I really need to, there was no foresight on the administration side of things. I am not used to being a completely solo developer. I'm used to having little side projects and having to do talks and participating in a community of people. But I'm not used to having to do everything by myself. And so I did not I lacked the foresight on the administration side of things, so I need to take some time for that, really make sure I capture that coming forward. So the lessons I need to learn, I need to start doing more experiments with the game. Administration tasks need to be accounted for in our sprint planning, and planning needs some more concrete deliverables. That was another thing, was I didn't really, although I had this goal, I didn't know what I was building, and that was kind of lacking, whether it was a OneNote or a PowerPoint or a thing. I had an idea, I just didn't actually lay it down. So that's what we're going to talk about in the sprint planning later on. So in terms of the call to action or what the planned improvement section here, I am going to start doing prototyping. So my design and development, I'm going to start implementing stuff. We are going to we're going to get the prototype ball rolling, so that's really awesome. We're going to add a category to the sprint planning session, which we're going to see today, more specifically an administration task. So we are going to limit the amount of content that can go in there. I want it to be very limited, but I do need to make sure that I have an administration task set up so I have an inventory of what's going on, and I can do that. I need to plan for the deliverables and what needs to be completed to make it possible. So a good example for that is like, so yes, as the game developer, I'm building the thing, but as a solo game developer who is doing everything on my own, I really need to account for the stuff like setting up a download page, you know, or a bot or something. These little details, setting up cleaning up Discord. These things need to get done, and I'm the only one that's doing them. I'm really that, hate this term, but the entrepreneur of this set of things. Like, you need to have that administrative task piece accounted for when you're doing your sprint planning. So that's what I'm going to be learning from this. Stakeholder Q&A. Now, remember, you are one of the stakeholders because you are here and you're watching it either in VOD or you're watching it on live stream form. If you've got any questions, throw them into the chat. I'm looking at it right now, and I'm going to get the next slide deck going so we can do the sprint planning. And we're also going to, actually, you know what we're going to do before we do sprint planning? We're going to do a demo. Let's do the demo of what we've got, shall we? So let's take a quick moment, so if people have any questions, they can go right on ahead. Move over to me while I get stuff ready. And let's see what we got here. I'm going to get our friend OneNote going, or another PowerPoint going. There we go. This is going to be a bit brighter because I don't have my theme going, my dark theme. Where's my design? Let's maybe I can change it on a whim here. No, it didn't work. So we're not going to do that right away, but that's okay. So let's go through the storyboarding, and then I'm going to load up. Oh, I can't do it on this computer. I've been actually doing development on my laptop, so I can't do the demo of the shell. It's not that big. It was literally just a out of focus screenshot, or out of focus title screen with an exit button on it. Very minimal. I'll tweet the picture when I actually get it loaded up later tonight. But yeah. So maybe I'll use that as a thumbnail for this. Okay. Anyway, let's bring up the slides again. So first of all, let's put up the things. So that's done. Close that guy. And now we're going to do this one. So this is actually what we did. Let's go over here. Just want to put a marker in my chat here. Perfect. So we're doing this, and from the beginning. This isn't working very well, so let's try this again. Set up slideshow. Perfect. From current slide. There we go. Much better. Okay. So this is the dialogue gameplay. This is kind of what we had worked out. So this is my what I had redone a bunch of. These are the overall gameplay states and transitions that I had going. Starts on the far left, over there, over here, and then migrates its way over to the post dialogue section. A couple things to note. I'm not going to go into the weeds with this. I've worked it all out for myself, and if you do want to join in, we'll get some more sharing going with this stuff. There's three phases: the pre-dialogue, dialogue, and post-dialogue. This is how every level or every conversation level is going to work. I'm looking forward to prototyping this so I can actually stop talking about it and show. But what's in my head, at least, I hope I can. The key there is the player can only move forward through the phases of gameplay. So once you make decisions and a conversation ends, the level is over. Like, that's how the levels will progress. This isn't a full exploration game. It is a level. There's a start and there is an end, and you must get through it to progress the game. And that's why I want it to be moving forward. In terms of this, the pre-dialogue state, you enter the level. You cannot start the level. And now you can kind of go into it and can start if you're walking in range of the dialogue trigger. I have all the different things here. The dialogue states in terms of when you're in dialogue. This is the kind of a neat one. So you can go here, and if you can see, I'm highlighting over with my mouse, but that's not really helpful. Start with the dialogue ready, move into the in-dialogue mode where the player is actually interacting with it. So there's some screens, some things, some pop-ups, some GUI maybe pops up. And then you can exit. There's a lot of ways you can exit, because you can see here up top I have this whole dialogue section. That's actually the one that I'm most interested in experimenting with in the prototype, because I want people to be able to move around a bit while they're having a conversation, and I don't really know how that's going to flow. I think that's kind of my little bit of a, what I would call a hook. But we'll see. I gotta kind of play with it and see what I can make it, see if I can make it work. But yeah, that's kind of it. And then at the end, dialogue is completed and you exit the level. So, and that's dialogue is complete as the level is over. So you can explore a little bit more in the level space, but you can't really do much more, and you eventually will leave and move on to the next level, or at that point, camping mode. So yeah. In terms of the storyboards, I'll show you what I got here. So this is the index that I came up with in terms of what I need to build in sort of an MVP, where I need the prototype to capture these different stories. And the only one I kind of worked on was when you activate how it in dialogue kind of feels. So if I go into here, the enter range, it's kind of all fully animated, so it's again, it's not cleaned up. But this was actually taken from my previous. This is kind of how I see the screen setting up, except the contents of the screen or the background is actually going to be the level that you've actually seen in the past. So if I wish I could pause this. Go to section. I want to pause the show. Can I pause it? Well, you know what? We're gonna just do it this way. So you can see here, the player is the bottom right, person's the NPC is the top left. They say hello there. You kind of pick what's gonna happen. So it comes down here. They'll pick say nothing. Things change, and then it'll show you some dialogue, and then the player reacts. Now the background is what's missing. So again, I will have these fleshed out for next time. Now that I think I'm kind of talking through this ridiculously. This storyboard will evolve into some requirements, and we'll see this a little bit more at the end of the next sprint, because I will start prototyping this. Yeah. So anyway, that's that on the demo front. Let's see if chat's going. Chat's going well enough for me. There's no one here today, but that's okay. That's okay. Maybe you're watching this on VOD. Maybe you're watching this later. Maybe you're watching this in 6 months. Maybe you're never watching it, and that's okay too, because I'm doing this for me, really. My heart's in this. I want this to happen. Okay. In terms of the demo, we'll have a cooler demo to do next time. But this time around, if I go here, we're going to load up the last PowerPoint slide deck that I have. So bring up OBS to make sure I know what's going on. Let's bring it over to me. Okay, and then I'm going to go to Twitch. Put another marker in. That marker is going to be planning. Perfect. And so now I do slideshow in 3, 2, 1. Slides. Oh, it didn't work. Weak sauce. Because I didn't close the other one. Now I've broken everything. Okay, and let's try this again. Perfect. 3, 2, 1. So this is the Sprint 2 plan that we've got going on here. I'm just going to bring up chat so I can see it, just to make sure I'm not ignoring people. And hashtag Vagabond Game Sprint Plan 2. So this is now, we had Sprint 0 as kind of, I called it my warm-up sprint. I got called out for that being my warm-up sprint, but then Sprint 1 is complete now. And like I said, what we learned was I wasn't capturing enough in terms of the actual amount of the work that needed to get done to make sure everything was able to produce a release. So let's talk about this here. So again, sprint plan is going to be again another 3 weeks. The end date is October 7th, 2019. So we're sticking with the 3-week thing. It's going well. The sprint goal is to actually test the gameplay. So that's what I want to let the players download and play something. I'm not going to say it's the actual prototype, but I am going to say they need to be able to download and play something somehow. So there's some key things in there. In terms of what we need to do to get this done, there's some tasks, more specifically around the design On the design side of the house, to make that happen, we need to review the current design with the previous prototype. So if you have been following along this whole time, from way back when I started streaming a lot more, I was streaming like twice a week, we did a lot of work around another prototype of me experimenting and figuring stuff out and kind of tinkering with Unity, kind of essentially learning Unity and what we could do with game development in general. With this, what we're doing is I'm looking at that old prototype and I'm going to figure out what kind of content is there that relates to the new, the refreshed and updated design. It's been a while since I've looked at it. So you might see if I'm coming down here, I might do some sporadic live streams. And then we'll go through that content together and actually see. But it's going to be no promises. We'll just see what happens. In terms of development, I want to reuse what I've already built. So I already built a new title screen, so I have a clean new project, and that's great. But I want to see if there's some stuff that I think will carry over quite well. So I'm going to see if I can port that stuff over and reuse it. From the administration side, I need to make it possible to download and play the game. So more specifically, download the game. Like, how do I do that? I could put it on an itch.io page, but there's some other considerations I have about building a community around this. Because the thing that I need the most is a conversation about this game. Right? I need feedback. I don't want to just put it out there for just some random game. I want people to try to engage just a little bit, not a lot, but it's just how do I get those people to engage? And it's not about logs in or selling it or any of that kind of nonsense. It's really about getting honest feedback from people. So how do you get them to commit a little bit more than just a blanket download and hope for the best? I'm not there yet. I'm not at that point where I need to I don't want 100 million downloads, right? I don't want to just get everyone to download my free garbage game on itch or Game Jolt or whatever. I want people to come there and go, you know what? I am gonna engage a little bit. I am gonna let them know who I am. And I'm not, and again, I'm not gonna share that data, but I want them to engage with me. So I gotta kind of work out that detail or those details. Okay, so in terms of what the work we're actually gonna get done, from the design point, I want to complete the storyboards for specifically entering a dialogue, exiting a dialogue, and holding a dialogue. So that's the very important stuff that I want to get done. And I want to do the first draft of the marketeer dialogue script. So I'm pushing myself a little hard on that one, but I want to see if I can get the first draft of the dialogue script so we can actually have the outline of a level and start building that. See what developing and designing a level actually means in the context of a work, because I've never actually built a complete level, so we're going to work on one single level for a while. In terms of development, I want to salvage and port over old code. I want to be able to spawn the player. I want them to be able to move around. I want them to be able to interact with items or objects in the game world. So whether that means a dialogue trigger or whatever, I've got a lot of that code written and moved out in my old project. So I'm going to try to port over some of those scripts and make sure it kind of fits into the new model or into my design and see if that can make that work. And lastly, from an administration side, and I am only going to limit myself to one administrative task per sprint until the other ones are done. I need to set up a quote-unquote download portal for the new game. I'm not sure if that's a website or what it is, and I'm not going with MVP on that one because I know my gut wants me to build a website. A website is distracting to me. I do not want to build a website unless that's the only way I can do it, and I don't necessarily want an itch.io page because I don't think that gets the engagement I need. So I need to figure out what download portal means and then kind of make that work. And I have some interesting ideas, but I want to be able to build the game, deploy it, and make it downloadable through this portal mechanism, whatever that is. So there's a lot of work to be done here. And if there are any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Let's just take a look here. If you have any questions, awesome. Throw them in the chat. That's appreciated. If you're watching this at a later date, that's awesome. You can ask your questions either in the comment section or here over at Mixer, Twitch, YouTube. Today I'm not on Mixer, which is a bummer. I totally forgot about the new terms of service to clean that up. But you guys can on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. There's a bunch of stuff coming down the pipe here, but there's a way to get a hold of me. So if you have feedback, please let me know what you think I could do better, what I could do worse, what I'm doing worse, all that kind of stuff. This was a pretty fast one tonight, but I think it's because I'm missing my Mixer community, and that's a real bummer. I'm a big fan of my Mixer team. So, that being said, thank you so much for being here and watching and spending your time here. So this is going to go up on YouTube later, and we'll put up on Facebook and all that kind of jazz. But As usual, I hope that everyone's having a great day, and if you could do me a favor and have yourselves a pleasant day and or evening, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.